And welcome to the show. Today we've got a special guest, Matt. He's a born-again Christian. I'll just bring into the stream now. Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Paul. Hope you're all right yourself.
Yeah, I'm not too bad at all. Would you just like to just introduce yourself and just give a little brief story about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Matt. 38. I've been a Christian for about 20 years. I'm an engineer. My dad's been in the army, travelled all around the world. So I've seen quite a different bit of life, you know, from different parts and growing up in different countries. And here we are. So, and here we go, I've met Paul, and we're going to discuss two completely different worldviews, and hopefully it'll be a nice chat. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Just for everybody to know, we first started talking on Facebook. I believe we were commenting on the same post, weren't we? And then we decided last week we'd have a chat. So we had a chat last week. And then this week you've agreed to come on the show, which thank you very much, because you're my first guest. And I've only literally just started live streaming, so I'm new to all this myself. My background's pretty similar to yours, really. I moved all over the world. I was in the army for 15 years myself. Growing up as a child, I was in the same place all the way through till I was 20. So I didn't move around as a child, but later on, I moved about. So anyway, we'll get into the questions. One of the first questions I want to ask you is, when did you become a born-again Christian?
I became a born-again Christian. I was around about the age of 15, just about to turn 16. It must have been within a few weeks. And even though I'd believed in God before, I don't think becoming a Christian is something that's just done lightly. It is a decision. It's, you know, you are conscious of it. You are determined. You know, you have a choice to make, and you go and make that choice. And it's, you know, you're behind every you know, we're all behind every decision we make, because sometimes it's instinctive. But this particular occasion was really thought out, and not even for long. I think it was around about 15, 16, and it dawned on me that even at such an early age, at 15, 16, I'd become not a very pleasant guy, at least on the inside. And when it was kind of not myself was revealed to me, but when it was kind of brought to my attention through my dad, who is a born-again Christian and obviously was then, according to my belief in God already, it dawned on me how much I lied and cheated and had stolen and I'd done all these things. And I was at a pivotal point in my life. I thought, I'm about to leave school here. I've got college ahead of me. No plans to go to uni, but I'm going to have to fend for myself. This is it now. I'm on my own. My parents will probably just look after me for the next couple of years with the house. Then I'm expected to kind of look for my own place, you know, with my own jobs and build up my own family. And I thought, well, what a time. If I'm going to need God at all, if I'm going to need any help at all, if I'm going to need to turn my life around and make sure I'm living it the best way I possibly can, it's going to be now. And I need to sort myself out. And when my dad had told me I need to examine myself and really look deep, what is going on inside me, I went and I prayed, and I said, Lord, there's this, you've made yourself known to me in so many ways, and I haven't really acknowledged it. I've just kind of known you there. I've sensed your presence here and there, and I've done nothing with it. I have just kind of palmed it off, and I wanted to do my own thing up to the age of 16. And when you're told, well, not when you're told, but when your own heart is revealed to you, just how evil your own thoughts can be, never mind towards anybody else, just in yourself, just how much anger and hatred you can have in your life, how much lust and materialism and malice and violence and anger and greed and selfishness. And just, you know, if I was to create a world but from my heart, no, everyone would be moving straight out, you know. So that's what I prayed. I asked the Lord to come and change my heart, help me be this person that, as I read as a kid, like this person, Jesus Christ, who came and showed people, if you want to have a perfect world, this is how you live. This is how you can have it. And so I just set off then, and I realized I was a sinner, and I acknowledged to the Lord, you know, I really need change. I really need a savior in my life, because I'm going to be getting worse. At 15 years old already, not even 2 decades in, this was the state my life was in, and that's when God came and turned me around.
Right. So just to get that right, then, so you was already previously a Christian, but basically you felt like
I wasn't a Christian then, because it's like you can believe that Australia exists, but until you go there and commit your life to that country, you aren't an Australian. It's right. One of those things.
Yeah, what I was saying is you did have a belief in God and a belief in Jesus, basically, but you weren't following it. Is that what's happening? Yeah. And when you got to 15, you decided you needed to sort your life out. You needed to change what you were doing, and then that brought you back to religion again.
Yes, it kind of the veil over my eyes had been lifted, and I thought, I get it now. I totally understand everything that's going on now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, with the story that you just said there, when I was growing up, from the age of about 13, 14, I started getting into bother. I was a bit of a rum lad. I was always getting thrown out of school. I was always skiving off school. I was always getting myself into trouble with the police. And I did the same thing when I got to 16-year-old. I thought, come on, Paul, you need to sort yourself out now. You can't carry on doing this and whatever. And I sorted my own life out without a Jesus. So couldn't you? Is it possible that you just made a decision in your life to do something about it, and really all the credit is to you for pulling yourself out of that situation? But you just sort of like put that, you sort of like giving the credit to God or to Jesus, when actually, when truth be known, the credit is actually all yours for sorting your life out. Because we're both in the similar situation, both probably little rogues as teenagers. You sorted your life out, and you contribute that to Jesus. I sorted my life out, and I acknowledge it was me that did it. It was me who made a conscious decision. Not to carry on like that anymore.
Well, because we can't see God. There's a disconnection. There's a distance. You know, I mean, we can go into that another time as to why this is. But I know in myself, I know categorically myself that if I wasn't married, if I did not have the Lord in my life, or any family around me, I would be a lazy bum, probably taking drugs, probably, swimming in tin cans, and with a job that I can just hold. I can put some skills together, get a CV out there and get jobs. That's me. This is the kind of person I know I am. The army is great for bringing out discipline in people. So if I was to go into the army, I know I'd come back and I'd have a house in ship shape. I would have it in order. I'd have my boots polished. As I've grown up, I've seen my dad polishing his shoes, ironing like you wouldn't believe. You can't find a crease. My dad, he was cleaning the brass with the brass. So it was a regimental discipline is good in some respect. And I acknowledge that, and I actually admire guys who go out and maintain that rigid lifestyle, that discipline to maintain that, however many years you're alive. But for me, who had not gone through any kind of regimental discipline, I knew I was going to be a bum, the kind of guys I hung around with. There is no man on earth that is ever going to change me. I have to make a decision to perhaps listen to somebody like Jordan B. Peterson, and then put those things into actions. It's all right. Like Jesus says, it's not good enough to just be hearers of the word. You also have to be doers of the word. So when you've got a sergeant major, come on, you build up some kind of, come on, I can do this. But unless I have that, I'm just one of those knuckle draggers dragging my feet through the mud, through life, because life is getting harder. So when I call out to God, first thing that happens is the scales over my eyes are removed. I understand life as it is, and I understand the part that the Lord plays in my life, that if I give absolutely everything over to the one who created everything, and it says in the Bible that his wisdom and his understanding is way beyond ours, I can trust him. And like I explained in our last chat, your parents says when you are children, they do not make you cook yourself, cook your own tea, make your own bed. You go into the house with implicit faith and trust, and you don't even question it. It doesn't even enter your mind. You live in a childlike faith with your parents that they will look after you and they will feed you with nourishment and give you plenty of water and give you all the things that the body needs. When I gave my life to the Lord at 15, God does not just suddenly sweep you off your feet and then run away with you. No, he's with us, but we have to do the physical work. The Lord he may put certain people in our lives that may encourage us, like a sergeant major. Well, we are the ones who have to pick up. So when I had lost my first job at 60, I think I was 20, and I was a Christian, well, I messed about. I was ringing in sick on Mondays. I joined a punk band. I was up and down the country playing the drums, rocking out to all kinds of old 80s punk music. And it was raw. It was rough, full of drugs and everything. Well, that was my choice. I stepped out of God's line of living right and his will for my life. I stepped out and thought, well, look, there's a band. I might join that. Instead of staying with God, staying side by side with him and following his lead, his direction, I went off on my own tangent, my own path, which led to destruction, loads of drugs, losing a job. And so before I knew it, I was back on that path with the Lord, and then I got married. And then things start to fit into place again. So that's why when I know myself, it just doesn't work for me like that.
All the things that you're describing are pretty much what I went through. Like I say, I was always in bother as a teenager. I stopped getting into bother. I joined the Territorial Army. It was in the 80s when I left school. So, of course, in the UK, there was 4 million people unemployed. So the only work you could get was like labouring jobs on building site, which might only last 4 or 5 months. And then you'd be a couple of months waiting for another job to come along, and then you'd get that one for a couple of months. And this is how it was. From leaving school, I'd have a job for 6 months, I'd be unemployed for 3 or 4 months, and I'd get another job. And this is how it went on. There was just nothing for us. So I joined the Territorial Army. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I enjoyed going on exercise. And I thought, well, I might as well make this a career. So then obviously I joined the military. And while I was in the army, I met the wife, we got married, we had children. So my thing, I'd say, is opportunities come along in life. Sometimes it's good opportunities, sometimes it's bad. I would just say that what you did is you took advantage of the opportunities that you were given. Again, I was given all these opportunities, but there was no God looking out for me. So why would things go all right for me without a God, and things go well for you with a God? Now, I presume that you think that that God had some direct action in your life. God was actually pushing in the right direction, putting people that would meet you, which would give you opportunities. You're contributing all this to God. So my next question would be really is, and I don't mean to sound awful when I say this, what makes you so important in God's eyes that he thinks that he needs to help you, but a young child that is totally innocent of anything is suffering from cancer? Why would God help you and not help that child that's got cancer if God is capable of helping people?
Well, would you like me to use what I know that it's written in the Bible about what happens in this situation, or would you just like me to just come up with my own thoughts outside of the Bible? It's
just whatever you think is.
Whatever I think. Okay, yeah, no problems. Well, when people ask me about the Bible and why these atrocities and why things happen in the earth, you have to have a look at the very beginning. And when I read the Bible, it tells me why evil came into the world. So let me just take you just on a slight little journey. It's still on the same point. When I wake up on a morning and I walk to work, it takes me 10 minutes, and it's a nice day, and I see all these flowers walking to work, and I'm hearing the birds, and I'm greeting neighbours as they're getting up to walk the dogs, and we're having really polite, pleasant conversation. And I'm feeling the wind breeze on my face, and I'm looking out eventually halfway through to work. I'm seeing a really nice view over the town that I look at that I live in and work in. And I get to work and do my job, and I come home and I had a brilliant day, and I have peace, I have joy, I sense all the security I have in my life with my wife, my house, my job, friends, my family, everything is going great. There's such a goodness and a purity and a wholesomeness, a wholeness with having a life like that and a day like that I wish I could have every single day. But then when you get somebody going and getting mugged and getting beaten and getting stabbed and a granny getting a handbag taken off and all this stuff, you've got to think to yourself, where these consequences come from? Why is this in the world? Who's decided that that's the way they want to live their life? Why do they think they want to rob from other people? And whereas me, I'm walking to work, pleasant as you like. And so the Bible says, well, at the very beginning, because it is God's word, this is how I take it and how it's written, that the Lord tells us in the Bible where evil comes from and why the earth is the way it is. So if you take that, how the world is evil, because we've suddenly decided to do something evil, there is now evil in the world. Like I say, built on choices. So eventually illness and disease and corruption and all these things gradually, as Adam and Eve passed down from human to human to human to human, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the greed and the selfishness of humanity is multiplying. And gradually you're getting sex outside marriage, and then you're getting all kinds of sexually transmitted diseases, and then they mutate into other diseases. And the world gets worse and worse and worse, to the point where people ask me questions like, how can a baby die of cancer and you can live with all these things? The question is, I don't know. But the Bible tells us that there is evil in the world, and there is disease, and there is corruption because of the evil in our hearts. When we act on it, it's producing. The evil has been produced. We may be tempted to do something. If we don't do it, evil has not been produced. If we act on it, it has been produced. There's kidnappings and rapings and killing and all kinds of things going on in the earth. I'm not part of that. And so I would feel I'm quite blessed. My mother went through cancer treatment last year. We prayed for her. She's now in remission. Absolutely no problems. The Bible says that a child, if a child dies, it dies with an age of no understanding, that it would go to be in peace with God. And perhaps the Lord would use the death of a child to help these parents that were being, distraught, to turn them to him. If there's somebody out there, save my child. The Lord works in mysterious ways that are outside of our thinking. So
it seems a bit of a random act, really. I mean, you're saying there that your mother was getting treated for cancer, and you've all prayed, and thankfully she's now in remission.
Yeah.
So would you say that's down to the praying, or down to the treatment she took from the hospital? I would say it was the treatment. Praying doesn't normally work very well without the treatment. She got the treatment. I would say it was the treatment that's saving her, not the praying.
Absolutely. And we commended the doctors and the technology and the cancer research. It actually gave me a bit more faith in the cancer research for the first time, because when they're coming up with a new method of testing, method of treatment, and then we find out that it works, we're thinking, great, brilliant, God's provided, something's been provided. The logical thinking of a human brain to just suddenly think, well, if we had that and we had that, why can't that even be influenced by God to the doctors to then treat the patients? But that aside, what I find is that, like, my uncle died of cancer. I don't remember if anybody prayed for him, and he died of cancer. God does. I'm sure God does heal people who don't pray. I'm sure there's a plan he may have for their life in some way. He may have drawn them to him.
That's what I mean.
In the process.
It seems a bit random. It seems no more than any other thing that would be random. I don't understand how you were managing to attribute it to a god.
Okay, well, put it this way: what we did find with my mum's treatment was she had acute leukemia. I think it's MLS, and she was supposed to have 4 chemo sessions, and she was in a hospital the whole time. The first treatment, she was ill. She was bedbound, pale, skinny. You could see the bones coming through her skin. That's what this treatment's doing to my mum, not the cancer. It's the treatment that's doing this. So that's expected. And then what happens is she starts to feel better once the poison's out of her, all the chemotherapy's outside of her. Starts to feel a bit better and pick up a bit. Get ready for treatment number 2, which is supposed to be even more severe. Her treatment is supposed to be, her symptoms are supposed to be even worse, where we probably won't even get many more visits, maybe once or twice in the whole 6 weeks, I think it may have been. She was supposed to have 4, absolutely, categorically, was supposed to have 4 intense chemo treatments. She only had 2. They were supposed to get worse with each one, all the symptoms. She got better to the point, even on the second one. This was through praying before she even got into the hospital. On the second treatment, she was better. The second treatment, she was better to the point where she was helping the doctors changing the bed sheets. So if we did not pray, that did not happen, when we'd say, okay, that's how my mum went. She may have had to have 4 chemo sessions, but instead she had 2, and the second got better.
Sometimes you need more, sometimes you don't need as much. But on average, what they're saying is, on average, this is a normal program that we normally take when we're giving chemotherapy. They normally get 4. Yes, it can get really, really bad after the second or third one, but it doesn't mean that always that's going to happen. And it just so happened that your mother was lucky; she only needed 2 bouts of chemotherapy.
But if we pray and attribute the results to God, it cannot be refuted. It's like if I pray for one day, if I pray that next week it doesn't rain.
Have you heard the term before? Correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. So just because you've done something and the results come out one way, it doesn't mean that because you did the praying that's what caused the result. I'm sure that if she'd never had the treatment, all the praying that you'd have given her probably wouldn't have helped her at all. It's the chemotherapy that helped her, and it was just that she was lucky. She only needed 2 lots of chemotherapy. I don't see how that would be convincing to anybody that it's a God that.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I get that. Let me ask you one question. Have you ever in your life been in a dire situation?
Yes.
Where categorically no man can pull you out, and in your heart of hearts, has ever said to you, in your heart of hearts, you've cried out to someone or something beyond the human realm?
No, because
I've never even crossed your mind.
No, because I've never held a God belief in any way, shape, or form. I was never a Christian and then came to be an atheist or an unbeliever. I've never ever held any form of God belief ever. So for me to find myself in a dire situation, it would be down for me to get myself out of that situation or whoever's with me.
But you've never ever longed in your heart to be helped out of that situation.
I've hoped that things are going to get better and that, but I've never prayed and I've never called out to any God, because I don't have a God to call out to, because, like I say, it's not like I was a Christian first and then I came out of religion. It's like you would never pray to Allah, even though you're aware of the Muslim God. You would never pray to him, and it would be ridiculous for me to say to you, if you was in a dire situation, you wouldn't. You would shout out to Jesus or the
creator of the world. Yeah. If I was a non-Christian, a non-believer of any, if I was an atheist, and I did find myself crying out to a super being, an intelligent designer of the world, it would just be, if you are out there, whoever's holding the universe in his hand, help me.
No, I've never had that.
That's where I'd be. And we could talk about the different religions another time if you want, and I could say exactly why I know the God of the Bible to be right one.
You would never call out to another God, and the same as me, I'd never call out to your God or any of the other gods, because I've never held that God belief in the first place. So, like I say,
okay. So what's the main question? What's question are we still referring to at the moment? The child. What makes me special?
Yeah,
well, it's the same.
Basically, why do you think God would intervene in your life and help you through your life, but yet ignore a 4 or 5 year old child that's got cancer? Why do you think that God would look at you and think, I need to help Matt, but this 5-year-old innocent child who's never done anything wrong whatsoever, he's going to suffer terribly with cancer and die?
Well, let's not. I don't suppose. Well, I mean, even the Bible says we're all equal in God's eyes until we decide to go and take our own life down our own way and our own path. And so, obviously, without God and His ways, we then become even more corrupt and more evil, and gradually our hearts just become more burdened down with our own self-worth, our own self-righteousness that doesn't do anything. I would get worse, more selfish. So when you come to a 5-year-old who doesn't understand anything, and God decides to take that child out of the earth, there's a reason that God has brought that child out of the earth. I have testimonies of parents who have lost their children and blamed God. Well, why would they blame God if they were never really had a relationship with God? But suddenly something happens in their life, and then they point the finger and start blaming Him. You know what I mean? That becomes apparent to me that they're now attributing a death. They won't attribute anything good to God, but as soon as something's taken, they're pointing the finger and shaking the fist at God. Then I know parents who have lost their children, miscarriage after miscarriage, and it's brought them together as a couple even stronger and tighter, and it's increased their faith in God. And said, we cried out to God, had an amazing relationship with God and an encounter with a living God, and they've got triplets, or they've got a family of 6. You know what I'm saying? Every family's different, every person's different, and we are all unique. Our DNA tells us we are all built uniquely. There are no two the same. You may get 2 people looking alike, like identical twins, but the person is different between the two. And we all have given an account of our lives. We all make decisions for ourselves and for no others. Until we're at an age of understanding, our parents will guide us their way from the lessons they've learned and the mistakes they've made. They will then say, Matt, trust me, don't go put your hand in the fire. You're going to get burnt. And what do? We always put our hand in the fire. It's just one of those things. And then we get a fire guard up then. We'll go find something else, a plug socket to put our finger in. We follow an example of human beings. We learn from lessons. And if a couple does not know God at all, and I know couples who know God and have lost children to cancer. I know couples who don't know God and have lost children to cancer. But I tell you one thing, you may see the Christian couple may lose faith. You may see the non-Christian couple come to know God. There's a reason why God may, to me as a Christian, that God allows things to happen. Because if, I'm trying to think of some examples in the Bible I could come back to once I get my head around it, suddenly cloud on it. But that's the answer.
Any further, I just want to say hello to the people in chat, because we've got quite a few people in the chat now. We've got Brainbug, we've got Never Again, Critical Cripple, Junk Shop Libraries in, What else have we got in there? Santi the Sane, welcome. And let's see if anyone else is there. I think we've got about 7 people watching at the moment, which is quite good. I'll just see if there's anything in the chat that anyone's put in. If anyone's got any questions that they want to ask Matt, just stick it in the chat. Put a Q at the beginning of it, or mark me with it, and I'll see if I can see it. See if there's anything in here. Yeah, so if anyone's got anything they want to put, any questions they want to ask, just put it in the chat, and I'll see if I can pick it up. It's a bit slow on StreamYards, but unfortunately, when I look onto the iPad, it's a bit too small for me to read. Yeah. Anyway, so I think we'll go on to some other questions. We'll try and keep your answers a bit shorter because they seem to be quite long, and it's a lot to take in. So there's not a lot to.
No worries. Yeah, I thought there was just going to be 4 or 5 from your message earlier. So
yeah, there is. So I
mean, no worries.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, these questions are going to lead to other questions as we go through them as well, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, naturally.
Right. My next one was going to be, what does it mean to you to be born again Christian? But I think you sort of covered a lot of that in your last bit. And then I said, have you always been a Christian, or did you ever not believe? So has there ever been any period in your life where you haven't believed?
Yes, there have been moments, and I would put that down to the teaching of evolution and any community that would doubt the existence of God.
Right. So evolution made you doubt.
Well,
because
the teaching of it.
Yeah, you have a lot of.
The reason why is because initially I'm growing up as a child, knowing that God is watching me and doesn't want me to be an evil person. He's set places, laws in place. Go and love everyone. Don't go and treat evil with evil. Go and love your enemies. Go and puts all these things in place. You imagine a world like that. Imagine a world with biblical teachings, especially the teachers of Jesus. Horrible. And that's how I grew up, right?
Horrible.
Teachers of what? Loving each person, giving to the poor.
No, because you don't need religion to love people. I love people. And
okay, I'll come back. I'll come back to that in a sec.
I love life probably just as much as you.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to that. We can do that another discussion if you want. But everything has to come from somewhere. Influence has to come from somewhere. We'll go talk about that another time. But
influence comes from around you.
Has to come from somewhere.
That you're with, from your own thoughts. That's where your influence comes from.
Yeah, it's got to cascade down from the beginning of humans to now. There's got to be anyway. What does it mean to me to be a Christian? Well, I'll carry this on. For me to be a Christian, to me, to become a Christian, you acknowledge your own sin in your life. I mean, I don't know how many guys will be willing to admit that when a nice good-looking girl walks down the street, keeps her head forward, or look, and they're married and they're looking, and they might just say, "Oh, it's just human nature." No, you've got a wife, faithful, and you look ogling at some other woman. Guys do that, okay? This is just one surface thing guys doing, right? We try. Imagine if that was left unchecked and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm trying not to live a life like that, and so what happens is I start off. Sorry. To be a Christian is knowing that things like that are going to happen with me. And when I give my life over to God and realize I'm doomed. This is humanity. I'm doomed. I want my life to be right. I'm going to give my life to Jesus. He's going to teach me the way. I'm going to follow his teachings, his ways. I then suddenly realize, wow, if everybody did this would be great. Jesus teaches to be a Christian. Look after the widows. Look after orphans, give to the poor, be kind, don't be greedy, be generous, be loving, don't be selfish, treat your neighbor as yourself. And if anything,
non-Christians do exactly the same things.
Yeah. But I'm just telling you what it means to me to be a Christian is forgiving everyone. It's forgiving people to the point where it might even hurt, and I've had to do that a few times. Tell you that it's looking at life with absolute appreciation, contentment with what you've got, not looking to succeed above anybody else, not striving to survive, but thriving on enjoying your contentment of your life with your family and your friends. That's to me is being a Christian.
Matt, we're going on long. You're giving really, really long answers here. One question I've got for you is what is wrong with looking at another woman, even if you're married, just looking?
Okay, I'll give you an example. This is just a quick example. When I was in the car, I was on the way to pick up my wife. I noticed a car in front, and I saw a girl walking past, and the guy must have been nearly retirement age, put his arm out the seat and followed her all the way. And I thought, this guy's got kids, he's got a wife. And I thought, imagine if she knew that. Imagine what she would feel like if she could see the secrets of her husband's heart. So that's why I think there's a problem for me.
Like that, I agree. We shouldn't behave like that. What I'm saying is, if you notice another, as you're walking down the street, there'll be a pretty girl coming towards you. You notice her. Yeah, if you start,
notice. That's the difference. That's the difference. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's like me. I can be in the car with the wife. Me and my wife, we aren't jealous at all. We absolutely 100% trust each other. I can be in the car and I can actually not notice a girl. And the wife will nudge me and go, "She's your type," and I'll look and I go, "Oh yeah, she is," because she can actually pick it. She could pick. You could have 10 women lined up, and she could pick, and she gets it right every time. It's phenomenal how she does it, but she can absolutely pick out.
I don't expect my wife doing that with me anytime soon.
There's what? Sorry.
I don't expect my wife doing that with me anytime soon. It's it's just be a bit uncomfortable to go through that. But if you're comfortable, fair enough. That's fair enough.
I don't see how it's a sin, or basically it's a thought crime. I
think it leads to something. It leads to something.
Why does it lead to something? It doesn't lead anything to me.
Well, I'll tell you, where you were, like Mike me and you've discussed, if you were to go to people who decide, well, I'm going to live a life of celibacy, and next thing you know, they've been caught molesting children, and I've heard about nuns getting pregnant and sleeping with vicars, and there's an order of life that God's put in place, and when you go and deviate from that, it leads to evil. It leads to evil.
I don't see how that.
It may be in human nature, maybe within, but it still is an action based on a choice.
Yeah, like I said, evil? What I'm saying is,
it leads to it. That's what I'm saying. It leads to it.
If it's two consenting adults, I don't see how, regardless of what it is they're doing, if it's two consenting adults together, I don't see how that.
I understand. The way I've seen life, the way I've experienced and I've heard about couples is, as soon as one couple, the wife allows their husband to get a bit ugly, it then leads to a little bit flirty, and then ends up, he's in cheating.
No,
nip it in the bud. Stick with the one woman. Stick with your woman. Faithful with your kids.
Yes, I agree with that.
It leads to something worse. That's all I'm saying, and I've read that throughout the Bible. When things are left unchecked, unchallenged, it leads to worse things. It's what you nip it in the bud as soon as you can, basically. And that's why I become a Christian. And I said to the Lord, I need help. Please.
All the things that you mentioned up to now are all things you can do yourself. You don't need a Jesus or a God to change your life. Let's say you change your life, I changed my life. You did it with Jesus, I did it without Jesus. I've been married 31 years, and it's been the best thing I ever did was get married. I've got two lovely.
Well, same for me.
Children. Sorry.
Same for me. The best thing, getting married.
But say that happened in my life, and Jesus wasn't involved in it. but yet you're contributing your life or the way your life has gone down to a Jesus. I don't understand how
well,
it
you
looks
went, you
our
you lived a regimental life.
No,
did you say you left at school?
Not until I joined the army at 20.
At 20, okay, so not far from me. Okay. Like I say, everybody's different. Everybody's got different intentions, different motives. And then I'm being totally transparent here and saying I would not be the person I am today if it was not for me calling out to God, asking him, please come and change my life.
If it wasn't for you, that's where you should have stopped. If it wasn't for you,
if it wasn't for Jesus, my life would be in a mess and I wouldn't be married. I've prayed and asked for a wife, a house, a job, cars. I've asked for absolutely everything. And then I've gone into looking. I've gone and looked into the house. I would like that. I want that house, Lord. But if it isn't from you, I don't want to get it, because God gives the best to people. Sometimes he'll take you through lessons so you learn contentment.
Back to the first bit then, that you're saying that God gives you the cars, the house, the wife, the children, and all this lot. And like I said,
pray for things, he can give things. Sometimes he can take things.
That's just the same as me making myself a wish list.
Okay,
that's all you're doing is you're praying, but what you're doing basically is you're making yourself a wish list. Because this is what I was saying earlier. I don't understand why you think that God. And I say, don't take it as an insult. I don't see how, if this God does exist, I don't see how you get to the conclusion that God looked at you and chose you out of all this, but yet ignores all the millions and millions of other people that are suffering terrible, which have the same belief as you. They believe in the same God that you believe in, and their life has been miserable since day one. But yet, for some reason, God decided to give all this to you. And nothing to them. I don't see.
I'm a very blessed man. And let me tell you this, Paul. I've had my fair share of things taken from me as well. When I showed lack of respect for what I have, discontentment for what I've had, and I've seen these things lost. And when I've learned about contentment and being grateful, suddenly these things are restored. Let me just very, very briefly, in a thimble of time, you go and read the book of Job. You said, I'm sure you mentioned you read the Bible, some parts or all or whatever back in the past. But you read the book of Job. He was a man who God had deemed absolutely spot on. What a guy. He worshipped God, followed God, did everything that was right in God's eyes, until he lost everything. And the Bible, he didn't have a bet. Basically, there's Satan. No, it's not.
God would play
I'll explain to you if you want. Basically, like I said to you, we've got these influences in our lives. We have these influences.
There's a comment here. From Junk Shop Library? What about the people who pray and their prayers aren't answered? What are they doing incorrectly?
Sometimes God doesn't answer, and I can give you plenty of testimony of people turning to God and having their faith wholeheartedly turned to Him through something that they did not get, than watching their lives be corrupted by something that they did get. And I've seen that many times in people's families.
It just seems a random act to me, and every time something good happens, that you're contributing that to God, because the same random acts are happening to everybody else in different religions and no religions whatsoever.
Well, the thing is, if you've got
down to a God.
Okay, well, I'll tell you another rant. I didn't think we were going to touch on this, but what atheists say is random. You are standing on it. This whole planet. You don't attribute that. You attribute that to itself. So I attribute. Sorry, you saying that the whole universe is just random, that it just creates itself. I wasn't going to get onto this. We could do this another topic another time. But it's like the same thing. It has to be attributed to something. If I have given my life over to God and I have prayed and asked, Lord, I need this in my life. Some wants I put to the side. and I'll go and save up some money and go and get them. Fine. But there are things that I need that I cannot get on my own. I can't get my mum's cancer out. I cannot get other people's illnesses out. I can't go and I can't get a job on my own. All I've got to do is put my CV in place, and go do the interview. I can't get myself the job. I can only do what's needed. If I pray and say, God, I need this, or I need this, I need this, if it is in God's will and it's for the best for me that God sees, that's when I get it. And what happens is when you don't get the things that you think you need, and you start getting the things you think, I actually did need that, but I couldn't see it at the time. You start to realize, and your trust is built more and more on God when your life starts to take this direction of, if I hadn't have given my life to God, I don't know where I would be. Where I'm going is teaching me about myself. It's teaching me about life. It's teaching me about how to treat other people.
Yeah, and you're starting to preach, mate. You're starting to preach. It's like being in church.
Yeah, but this is just this. But this is what happens when you're a Christian. You trying to explain and express, and you know.
Basically, you're counting the hits and ignoring the misses, which is basically what I was saying. You pray for people to be treated for cancer or to get cured from cancer, and it happens. But that's what happens in the natural world. Some people die of cancer. Some people are lucky to survive cancer.
Okay.
It's just as simple as that, really. Well, that's
some people die. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on to something else. What else we got? How long have we been going now? We're
50
not
minutes.
far off an hour. So, right. My last question was going to be: try to keep it short, Matt, because you go right on a ramble. Right. The last one is: do you believe the Bible to be 100% accurate? Now, we're not going to be able to cover all of this because I'm sure that.
I'll try and give an intro to it to maybe discuss.
Well, just a yes or no to start with. Do you believe the Bible?
Yes, absolutely.
I believe the Bible is 100% accurate. So
absolutely,
I'm going to make some assumptions from this then. So, are you a younger? I would say that you're going to be a younger. In fact, we might have covered this last time we spoke.
Yeah, we chatted about this. Yeah,
you're a young Earth creationist. Yeah. So you believe the Earth is somewhere around 10,000 years old?
Well, according to the Bible, it's about 7,000. Between 6,000 and 7,000 years old.
Yeah, you do realise that goes against all the scientific evidence.
Well, it just depends. We're both looking at the same evidence of two different points of view.
I don't know how you're getting to 7,000 years. I believe the Chinese history, I think they can trace it back for going on for about 10,000 years. So that puts them out on the run for 3,000 years.
Well, if somebody's putting dates down, it's like you can go look at the Grand Canyon, and I could say to you that was done with a worldwide flood, and that Grand Canyon was carved in a very short space of time, maybe a couple of weeks, with mass water, a deluge that covers the whole Earth. And then once the plates and the valleys are being caused, the mid-Atlantic ridge, all these continents are starting to shift and the plates are starting to move and all the water's rushing in. You could go and get yourself a hose pipe and start holding it in the same spot, and gradually, in a few minutes, you've got yourself a hole in the ground because of soft sediment. If you swirl up all the sediment in the earth and get it covered in water, get a jar of water, put some mud from the garden in it, shake it, set it down. Within a few minutes, you've got particle density sorting. And now, like I say, we've got the same evidence, but different points of view. A really small, thin river carving the Grand Canyon over millions of years, or a mass world deluge rapidly carving that Grand Canyon out, and Antelope Canyon and Utah Monument Valley over a matter of weeks or months. I mean, that area, Do
you know a guy called Kent Hovind?
Yes, I've seen some of his videos.
Thought you might have done.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm no expert on that sort of thing. But all I can say
is that's just one example.
Yeah, but you're going completely against what science teaches us. I take it you obviously don't believe in evolution either, then. So you don't believe that.
No.
You don't believe in any of that.
No, there's too many questions that are unanswered.
There's always going to be questions. That's the point, Matt. Yeah. There's always going to be questions, and science is never ever going to answer all the questions. I don't believe that's even possible.
To me, the Bible does.
At the moment, we don't know how life first got started on the Earth with abiogenesis. We've got no idea how the first
self-replicating cell came into being.
We don't know how the universe started. We go back to the Big Bang, and that's as far as we can go. We'll never ever know these answers. And basically, to me, what religion is and what God is, it's the God of the gaps argument. Instead of saying, I don't know what caused this, let's investigate it. Basically, what's happening is people like you're going, well, we do know the answer. God did it. But yet it doesn't match with reality.
Let me help you this way, because this is a stepping stone. I know that a lot of atheists, or a lot of Christians, don't provide for atheists. You've got to think about it this way, like, okay, so logically, if something exists, if it begins to exist, we know the universe began to exist. We know the William Lane Craig, the argument. Yeah. So it has to be attributed to something. Okay, so let's think about it this way then, logically. So if somebody, an intelligent, spaceless, time-missing material being created everything, right, and he writes everything down, the history of the world and what was going to be, and predicts it becomes right, and he says, I spoke and it came to be. What you can do, this is the stepping stone that some Christians do not allow for atheists. What you do is you take that and say, well, if God has made this, let's go look into it. Let's get a microscope and let's have a look into something called the flagellum motor. Have you looked into the flagellum motor?
Yeah, I don't find any of that convincing whatsoever. No, they get called motors, they get called engines. Certain things.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, you're seeing, if God says I made it, He's then providing through science scientific instruments to look deep down into how He made things.
Matt, just slow down a bit. If you take any simple anything as simple as it is, and you break it down into its smallest thing, it's going to be more and more complex the more you go. Something can look really simple from the outset, and when you look deep down into it and you use all these different microscopes, things start to look more and more complicated. That doesn't in any way imply that God did it, because the normal atheist answer to that is, where did God come from? And your answer to that would be, God's always existed. So why can't the universe have always existed? Anyway, I've got a question here from Junk Shop. Asking for an example of something that the Bible explains that science does not, other than abiogenesis, which is already touched on.
Something that the science does not.
Yeah, so basically,
something that the Bible explains that science does not explain. Okay, well, the origin of evil.
That's easily explained.
Science does not explain evil.
No, science maybe doesn't explain evil, as in the scientific.
But the Bible does. So that's my answer for that question there.
Right.
This is not me trying to be funny in any way. I'm saying that there's a book here written with so many things. If no one's going to listen to them and read them, and at least try to apply them, at least try to seek them out and try to search for the answers through the Bible. If we're just thinking, nah, it's just the Bible, it's just a religion, like you've said, science is going to be constantly on looking for the answers to the four most asked questions. How did we get here? Why are we here? Where are we going? And what happens when we die? Science can never explain that. And the Bible answers it in so much detail. It tells us how we got here, that God spoke and He breathed into the nostrils of the very first man and ribbed to the woman, and it tells you every answer.
It's the claim, right? And everything you're saying, they're all claims what you're saying, but none of that is evidence that any of it is true at all. I don't see any reason to believe in anything that you're saying. And like I say, the Bible is the claim. The Bible isn't the evidence. So saying the Bible.
But have you applied what's been written in the Bible? Have any atheists? What my question is always to atheists: have you ever applied anything of the biblical principles of living life? If you were to apply them, would you not see evidence yourself? if you were to read up on the origin of evil, sorry, I couldn't hear you then.
Give an example, like what?
Well, for example, it is in my human nature that if somebody does me wrong, I'm going to go and do something wrong to them. But instead, I read a biblical principle that says, well, go and forgive them. So I go and forgive them, and I go and show them that I've forgiven them by buying them something. And this is an actual example that actually happened to me in my life. A guy, we got to be dispute, just something that it wasn't my fault. He got irate, and I was all, riled with anger. And I went upstairs and I was calming down, and I prayed, and I was prompted by the Lord and said, go and get him a can of Coke, Diet Coke, which is his favourite. Go and give that to him and go and put it in front of him. And I did that very thing against my personal human, hateful, wisdom. I want to get him back. No, I went and said, there you go, Jeff, go and have that. So I bless you with a can of Coke. For the next 5 minutes, that guy spilled out to me how he has anger issues, how he has problems at home. And the guy thanked me for forgiving him. So that's a biblical principle.
We've all done similar things to that. We've all, right, I won't overreact. We've all done things like that, and that's still not evidence of a God. Basically, what you did is you went upstairs, you thought about it before you actually reacted, which everybody's capable of doing.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say, my point is, it would not have been my point had I not. If nobody has these principles, these biblical principles in the world today, I would have gone and laid the guy out. I would have gone and laid him out. That's my way of doing things. Don't forget.
Matt, hang on. What would your explanation be then for somebody who doesn't believe in a God at all, who reacted in exactly the same way as you? Why did he react in that way? You're saying God did it, and the other bloke's just saying, I've reacted in this way before, and all it's done is it's got me into big trouble. So somebody does me wrong. Somebody insults me, or somebody somebody insults me, somebody gets on my nerves, I've got a fiery temper, I lash out and I punch him. I think, right, that taught him a lesson. Then his mates end up jumping on me and I get my head kicked in, or
exactly.
And I get arrested. And in the end, I learn myself a lesson that it probably isn't a good idea to react in that way every time somebody basically pisses me off. So that's where that comes from. You can overreact on things, and most people learn as they're growing up. Children do react that way. They will lash out as a young child. As you get older, you learn to think. You can put yourself in his position and see why he's in the mood, and it's far easier to talk to somebody and say, "Look, calm down, mate. No, we don't." And most times you can sort things out. So I'd say most people can learn exactly what you learned. All you did was went upstairs, you thought about it, you probably walked upstairs and thought, when I come back downstairs, I'm going to knock this bloke out. You walked upstairs, you calmed yourself down and just thought, no, that's not a good way to react. That's all you did.
Okay. Well, the point still stands. Where does the principle do? Okay. So just on the same point, have you...
It comes from how you were brought up, your experiences in life as growing up, and you learn how to react on certain situations. And like I've just said, if you overreact on every time and lash out, you're going to end up with a pretty miserable life. You can be the hardest bloke in your town. And you'll go carrying on like that. Eventually, you'll find that nobody wants absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with you. No one wants to employ you. And your life, it's going to be pretty crap. And people learn that. People learn that quite easily.
Have you had a moment in your life similar to what I've just explained there, where you've thought, actually, I best not do that?
Yeah.
So you've applied a biblical principle?
No, I applied my own principles by thinking of what happened in the past when I've reacted that way, and it didn't go too well for me. So I thought,
that's cool.
Change my tactics and maybe not reacting that.
Okay, so my next point is, but did you want to, in your heart? Did you really want to go and react differently to how you actually did?
Well, you wouldn't have had the thought otherwise. It's for a split second. You think I'm going to react, and then you think, no.
Right, that's your human nature. That's your human nature right there. That wants to lash out at the world for hurting you, and then you suddenly applied this biblical principle that's been passed down to you through generations, and you thought, I best not do this.
All you do is learn not to react in that way. That's all you do, because if you, let me just explain to you.
Then all I can say is I'm thankful for biblical principles.
Matt, if you lash out on every situation, eventually you're going to learn that it doesn't work out too well for you on a lot of them times that you do it. Lashing out in this, it can lead you to getting arrested. You could end up, seriously hurting somebody.
Absolutely.
So
that's why I'm very grateful for biblical principles that people seem to be subconsciously applying because they've been taught through the generations, time after time. The Bible has stood the test of time, and it has never changed. People might try and copy it and make different versions, but the original manuscripts, it's never ever changed. Everything else has changed. Science, we thought it was that, but it's not. It's this way now.
Science will correct itself. Religion won't. Science.
Sorry, I didn't hear you again.
Science will correct itself. Religion has to be dragged kicking and screaming into the modern day century that we're in.
So just give us an example. Which one? Because of all the different religions.
An example, what I will give you is the acceptance of gays. All right, in the Bible, it might not accept them, but the churches are starting to accept them because they are getting dragged, kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And that's what happens to religion all the time. It ends up having to get dragged through so it has to accept what is classed as the norm. Religion doesn't dictate what is normal. We do, and unfortunately, we've got to drag religion with us, and eventually,
I can answer that one if you want. But what you've got is you've got so many predictions in the Bible that tell you what's going to happen. Obviously, that's what they are. What's going to happen before they happen. In the Bible, it's predicted that the world would become in the state that it is currently in, and that there would be. Let me finish. That the world, that religion.
I know what you're going to say. It's not predicting what happened. What it's doing is it knows what. But we all know what life's now. I can predict now in 150 years roughly what life will like. I can predict that there will be wars. I can predict that there will be people committing crimes because people have always done it in the past, and that's what it does. I wouldn't class that as a prediction. To me, for something to be a prediction, it has to be specific, and it has to have a time date on it. If it doesn't, it's not a prediction. Given enough time, happen. I can predict World War III because given enough time, we will end up with World War III. I can predict World War IV because given it enough time, there will be World War IV. And that's all that your Bible is doing. It is looking at what it's like now and basically projecting that onto the future and saying these are the sort of things that are going to happen. When in reality, we now live in one of the safest, best times throughout the whole of history.
We absolutely do not.
Right. So you think?
No way,
Matt. Do you think that it was safer to live in Britain 500 years ago or safer to live in Britain now?
I think it's about the same. I think people were more free back then, but
all the vaccinations that we can have, the understanding of disease, also with the law and order. I'm not saying crime doesn't happen, and I'm not saying atrocities don't happen. They do. But what I'm saying is you are living in one of the safest times there is due to medical advances and due to having a decent police force and at least a justice system that tries to get it right. The further
we'll discuss this another time. We can do another discussion on this, but let me just...
It's one of the subjects that gets on my nerves. People of my age, I'm 54, and people will say, oh, it was never like this when we grew up. We live in a much worse time nowadays than what we did when I grew up. And I point out to them, no, the problem is when you was a child, you didn't worry about it. Plus, we didn't have all the news, 24-hour news. We only had news 2 or 3 times a day. It only covered local news and mainly London news, so you didn't see everything. And I'll say, well, in the 1960s, you had Hugh Brady and Myra Hindley. In the 70s, you had the Yorkshire Ripper. You had Rose and Fred West. Growing further back from that, in the 1950s, you had that Christie bloke, 10 Place? Was it 10 Rillington Place? That you can go back in history, and all these evil things were happening there. it happens now. It's no worse now than it was back then. I would say it's safer.
Okay.
You've got the craze. You've got to go back to when the craze were on and the lot in Scotland. And if you look back in history, it's always been the same. When we get older, we look back and think for some reason it was all rosy back in the past, and it wasn't. It was just the same. And that's all that's happening there is by seeing what's going on in the time that you're living, you can predict what's going to happen in the future. So no, I wouldn't class that as a prediction at all. But anyway,
okay, then.
On now,
do you mind if I just give you just one example to go and have a look at? There was the whole prediction from the exact amount of days until Jesus came into Jerusalem that was predicted in the book of Daniel. There's also the prediction of the king of Syria. Was it Syria called Cyrus?
Matt,
so you mentioned something about specifics with predictions. So you've got the name, and then you've got the dates. So
to prove the Bible is what you're doing, Matt. Is you are using the Bible to prove the Bible. It's written in the Bible that this prediction is going to happen, and it's also written in the Bible that it did happen. Do you not see the fall?
So did the Syrian Persian Empire never happen?
And when was it written? It was written after it happened, not written before it had happened.
Did the Greek Empire happen?
When was it written that it was going to happen?
And the Roman Empire and the Babylonian Empire, all predicted, all written down, the exact order that they were going to be in. You also got the prediction of how many days.
When was it actually written down? Was this prediction written down before it happened, or was it written in the Bible after it happened?
Well, before, because it gives the name of the leader. It gives the name Cyrus. So when you go back and look at secular history, literature,
I'll have to look at that because I don't know that.
Go and have a look into it. You'll probably find that interesting. You've also got the prediction of the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD, that Jesus had predicted 40 years before it happened.
Yeah, but Jesus also predicted that it would come back before some of his disciples had actually died, and that didn't happen, did it? So that's one prediction he got wrong.
Sorry, just say that again.
Jesus said that it would come back. It would come back before. I'd have to look it up exactly how it's worded. If somebody in the chat can get that bit for me, basically, Jesus predicted that it might be the end times were going to happen before some of the disciples would pass away, would die. That's referring to what's called the rapture, which means the gathering away of all the saints. Yeah, but it didn't happen, did it?
No, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, but he said it would happen before some of them disciples had actually died. They would see it in their lifetime.
Yeah, what happens is you need to read the context and you need to read the language that it's saying that those who remain and are alive. So he's talking to believers all over the world from the time that the book is written or from the time that he has spoken those words. They're then written down a few years later. So from that point on, whoever's going to read that manuscript, and it's going to be copied all the way up to the time till today, all the believers worldwide who are going to read and understand that. It also then goes, because you've got to cross-reference scriptures in the Bible. That's the only way you're going to confirm them. It says those who remain and are alive on the earth at that time will then be caught up with those who have already been passed away. But just one thing, if I can just leave one thing for us to have a discussion about next time. There is also another prediction that's called the mark of the beast, and that is very specific. And I'd recommend, and I can give you all the Bible scriptures, but I'm answering the question, what does the Bible say that science can't? What does the Bible explain that science cannot? And he said that the Bible does not predict anything, only itself. But I could tell you something that you will be seeing in the world. You can almost see it, it's around you. Just something, for me to answer a question with your own research. That way I'm not putting out my own material. You can go away and read it for yourself. Just a little topic, just to Yeah, truly, I tell you, this generation will not certainly pass away. This generation of believers, because the believers before, I'm just reading the question. The believers before, the Jews, they didn't believe that Jesus was the one. Only this generation that he's talking to, referring to now, there's a new generation called the church. These will not pass away, or even the Jews at the time. You've got to look in context. You can't really just read that one scripture. You've got to read the whole chapter. That's one thing. People get out of hand. They don't read things in context and cross-reference it in other parts of the Bible. But we could definitely have discussed that. That's a prediction made by Jesus. Visions of other the disciples, the number of the beast. But yeah, we can go into that. Yes, it's a song, Brain Bug. But there's a prediction there. It's very specific, very precise. That's just to answer the prediction question and to explain something that the science can't.
Right. Anyway, well, how long we've been going now? We've been going.
Now 12. Do you want to wrap it up or something?
Yeah, we've been going an hour and 15 minutes. So you're happy to come back on next week? Did you say?
Yeah, but if we can structure it to maybe just 2 points and have set times so that I'm not rambling over your questions and extending.
You get a bit preachy.
Well, yeah, it's hard. It's hard, because it's when you come across somebody who's asking questions and then you're going to answer and respond back. There's so much you want to respond with. It's like, so if we can keep it maybe 2 or 3 points and have set times with a timer and make it equal and fair and whatever, we can do that.
Yeah, and we'll try and keep it for about an hour. What about timings? Are you? Can you do
similar
6?
times? Fine. I could try for 6. It's just very awkward for 6 on Sunday. That's all. 5's just much better for me, but yeah. I'll see what happens. I can let you know.
We'll keep it at 5 o'clock. We'll try and do it for 5 o'clock again, same as next week.
And perhaps if we reverse it and I ask you the questions next week, how's that?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah.
All right, then, Paul, mate.
Yeah, do that.
No worries.
Don't shoot off. What I'll do is I'll end the broadcast and then I'll just have a chat with you before you shoot off.
All right.
I'll just end the broadcast first and then we can have a quick chat. So yeah, thanks everybody who's turned up. Oh, Julie LaVoice, you've now arrived. Sorry, I missed you earlier on. I don't think there's anybody else that's arrived. Quickly, Never Again. Junk Shop will be late on this stream. I'm assuming he's probably gone to do his stream already because I think he was starting at 6 o'clock. So yeah, thanks for everybody turning up. And Matt, thank you very much for turning up as well. I'll end the broadcast here and I'll have a quick chat with you, and then I'm going to go and have my tea.
All right.
So, right, I'll end the broadcast here, and then me and you can chat.